everyone, to another episode of A Breath Fresh Marketing. I'm your host, Melissa Tsiodakis, and today we are here with Matthias Barker. He is a licensed clinical medical health therapist associate and specializes in working with complex trauma and childhood abuse with 52,000 subscribers on YouTube and 1.7 million fans on TikTok. Matthias, what's going on?
Hey there. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So thanks so much for joining. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I'm a psychotherapist in Spokane, and I have a clinical practice here, and then I've been posting kind of mental health content online, and that's kind of taken off as of late. So I'm kind of shifting a lot of my career towards making videos and workshops and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it's been kind of a fun ride as of late.
Nice. So are you originally from Spokane or?
No, actually, I moved around a lot as a kid, so I'm kind of from everywhere. So I moved like 11, 12 times as a kid, just moving around the U.S. And then was most recently from Colorado Springs. That's where I did high school, and then came up to Spokane for college, and then been here ever since. So like going on almost 10 years in Spokane now, which is the longest I've lived anywhere by far, like by 3 times. So yeah, Spokane's as much a home as anywhere, I suppose.
That's cool. Was your family military or just happened to move?
Yeah, I just moved a lot. My dad used to work for a company called AOL back in the day. That was the I don't know, precursor to social media maybe. So he was kind of working his way up the ladder there and just kind of moving from spot to spot. And yeah, it was fun. Got to see a lot of the country that way. So lived a lot on the East Coast, some in the Midwest. Went to China for a bit. That was fun. So yeah, I kind of from everywhere. Yeah.
Nice. So wait, what got you interested in psychotherapy?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think I was originally going to be like, I went to school to be a pastor originally, and I liked that idea. And then kind of just through a long series of events kind of stopped. I was working at a church at the time and quit my job and didn't think I was going to go into pastoring after kind of a negative experience being on staff at a church. And so then I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do? And I was looking around, and I actually, my own therapist suggested it, I think. He was like, well, you could be a pastor to, like, I don't know, non-Christian people, I suppose. Like you could just do psychotherapy. So that was like maybe the first thing that piqued my interest in it. And then kind of as I looped around and kind of just reflected on what that experience was like and kind of figured out what I believed religiously and stuff, I was just like, I think psychotherapy would be actually still a pretty good career path. Like I like the idea of getting to kind of learn psychology, like a whole different field of study. And maybe what I liked about it too is that it seemed like very, very practical, where not a criticism against theology or studying in a church or anything. Just I loved the idea of really having almost kind of step-by-step ideas about how to take care of things, and then went into the field and learned that it wasn't that simple. There's not exactly like step-by-step things, but there's a lot of information to learn. There's a lot of details that if you can understand them and kind of take them in, it could really help people and the struggles that they're facing. So I don't know. That's kind of a short end of that story, but that's kind of what originally got me into it, I suppose.
Nice. So your whole purpose is helping people move towards what's meaningful in the midst of hardship. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, that was kind of, I think I learned that in part from kind of the area of psychology that I study, which is something called contextual behaviorism, which is kind of like a large umbrella term for just like the style of psychotherapy that I do. And maybe like one of the main premises behind the style was it's not obvious that you can get rid of all the suffering and get rid of all the complexity of life, and kind of this mirage that some of us live in is like, if I can only make things comfortable and fine and good enough, if I can only just process the trauma and kind of get over it, if I could just get all my relationships with my family just right and get all the boundaries set up just right, like then I can be happy, then I can be fine. If I can like just get the job that I want, get into the school that I want, pay off the debt, like once I have whatever bar you have in your life, like it's set up that will award you happiness. It's like we spend all our time trying to hit that bar. And I think for what a lot of people realize is maybe halfway through life, maybe earlier, is like you hit that bar and you're still, kind of left with the question of how do I feel content and present with what I have right now? Because like a big part of my clinical practice too, is counseling people in I don't know, like the middle of their career, kind of like looking for a secondary job and feeling like, I don't know, I spent 20, 30 years trying to push for this career, and now I'm still kind of discontent. I'm still not really sure what the next peak is to pursue. And so we think a lot about just existentially what it means to reach success and still feel like, I don't know, there's something missing, there's something empty at the end of that. And that just kind of maybe goes along with like maybe a larger philosophy of life that I don't know, happiness and joy and peace and contentment are things that we experience in the midst of struggle and hardship. And I don't know, like you can experience all the richness and meaning of what's important to you right now, not just when you get done with school, not just when you get the job, not just when you get out of debt. It's like a lot of us reserve a lot of that peace and happiness for when we arrive somewhere. But I'm just not convinced that's the way to do it, I suppose. I think that a lot of that can be achieved in the moment. So that's kind of become my tagline of sorts, is moving towards what's meaningful amidst hardship, is maybe experiencing the fullness of what's important to you now instead of reserving that and giving yourself permission to feel it later once you feel like you've achieved what you think you should achieve. Sure. Not that achievements or goals are bad. It's just, it's maybe not the substance of it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I'll tell you what hard is getting all those subscribers on YouTube and TikTok. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah. I don't know. I think, well, so I kind of set out early on, like I graduated school December of 2019. Okay. And then so 2020 started, and that was right when, of course, COVID was kind of starting to become more serious. And not because of that or anything, but I guess just in tandem with that, I graduated school and decided like I wanted to write maybe like a piece of content every day as like an intellectual exercise, because I liked that part of school where I was always writing papers and being asked to think about things and then also substantiate things. So it's like I have an opinion, I think it works this way, and then school is pretty much saying like, okay, go figure out if that's true and then make a compelling case for it. And maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, and then that's a rewarding experience, right?
Sure.
So I thought, well, I want to keep that rhythm and experience kind of going, even if I don't have a grade attached to it. I liked that experience. And so I was like, well, what if I write something every day? What if I try to kind of distill down all the stuff that I learned in school, all the stuff I was reading from the great, I don't know, psychologists of the past, and what if I could break all that down and try to make it just approachable for just an everyday person that doesn't have like a psychology degree, or even isn't like necessarily interested in psychology for the sake of psychology, but is just like trying to raise their kids and trying to work on their marriage and trying to enjoy their job. Like what if it was just, there's some insights here that would just be valuable for anybody. And so maybe that was the challenge that I set out with, was kind of distill down all of maybe the complex truths that I found in all the psychological journals and in the study of psychology, break them down in a way that's very practical and simple for people to be able to grab in just a short amount of time. And then hopefully that'll be an enriching exercise for people. And of course that would be exciting. And so that was another reason for wanting to do it, was to make it more accessible for people. So I was writing on Instagram, like little kind of blogettes of sorts, little, I don't know, paragraph, 2 paragraph little things under my Instagram captions, and with like a little tile on my Instagram feed of, I don't know, some inspirational quote or something. And that's kind of what everyone does on Instagram, if you're a therapist on Instagram. And there's not many of us on Instagram, but there's a few, and that's kind of what you do. And so I thought that was good and fine, and I was writing my stuff and wasn't necessarily getting tons of engagement on it. But that was fine. I wasn't necessarily trying to, I mean, not that I wasn't trying to get engagement on it. That's a meaningful piece of it. But yeah, I was just content, I guess I should say. And then like around October-ish, September, so it was like 9-10 months through, I thought about just posting on TikTok, and I had that idea actually back maybe at the beginning of it all, but just with some friends, they were like, no, TikTok's the place where you like dance and, I don't know, skateboard fails and cat videos. Like that's not a place with like where you talk about trauma or something. And I agreed. I was just like, yeah, no, it's a silly space for kids that ain't for me. But then I don't know, I just had this like, I don't know, maybe an intuition, maybe just a hunch of there could be something there. And I think I saw another psychologist. Her name is Dr. Julie Smith, and she's out of London. And she's a psychologist that started posting little like psychology videos on TikTok. I'm like, see, I knew someone would try it. And I saw her do it, and she had a lot of success with it. And me and Julie have really different styles, but I was like, I think I might try my thing and just see what kind of happens. And so I threw like a video on there, and I liked that idea. I like the idea of doing a video instead of just writing a blog, because there's something kind of incarnate about saying it in a video, like, and that word meaning just like, it's one thing to read something or like a piece of information to be delivered. It's another thing to see that piece of information embodied by somebody. It's another thing to see that like, I don't know, it's like trying on clothes versus just kind of seeing them online. Like you wear them differently. You see it on someone's face. It feels different. And so
that's right.
I thought of like, oh, okay, let me try to wear these ideas, and maybe that would be compelling. And then that's when stuff really started to take off, was I think when it went from like a paper that I was writing, and not that I viewed it that way, but maybe like a hyperbole would be that it went from a paper that I was writing into something that I was really, you could see it on my face. And it was like something that was really coming from my personality and who I am. And so when that started happening, I think I posted on TikTok, and within like a few days, I got like 60,000 views. And that was cool. I've never got 60,000 views on anything. Like, and then the next video I posted got like 100,000 views. And then a few videos later, it was like 500,000. And I was like, whoa, crazy. it just started kind of taking off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Right. You're like, what just happened here?
Yeah. It was shocking, because I don't know. And then I went to 1 million followers in a month.
That's insane.
Which was just this virality that I'd never really experienced before, I guess, of course. But yeah, it changed a lot really quickly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, congrats on that. You're definitely doing something right. There's a lot of people that pay a lot of good money for that.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Right? So if you're doing it for yourself, you're definitely, you've cracked the code, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, maybe.
So you're currently working towards completing your 3,000 hours to be a psychotherapist, right? So what are your plans once that's done? Are you gonna start your own practice officially, or what's the plan?
Well, yeah, I've actually completed my hours just recently, and then
nice.
Yeah, which is neat. And then I just need to do something called the NCE, which is like the big test that they have therapists take to make sure that they know what they're talking about. And
sure.
And then I can go off on my own, and yeah, I can hang my shingle, and I don't have to have anyone kind of double checking my notes or anything. So that feels good. So
that's exciting.
Yeah. So I think I will. I'm thinking private practice is probably the next move. I think when is kind of a question mark, but I don't know. We'll see. It's been a change in my career a lot. I think I'm thinking about kind of making a move kind of closer to part-time here soon, and been talking to a lot of my clients about that transition and what that's going to like, just because there's been a lot of speaking opportunities and opportunities to partner with different people for videos. And it's just kind of realizing that my career is kind of taking a shift just away from full-time clinician to clinician and, I don't know, contributor on the topic of psychology and mental health. So I think all that is in flux right now. I'm kind of writing the script as we speak on what that's all going to look like. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So speaking of writing, what are some of the things you write down when you're in session with someone? Are you like, this person needs help? Like, what do you write?
No.
Yeah. You just like jot down notes. Like, do you ask them about, like, when they first start with you, do you ask them about, like, tell me about your family, your life, and then you get into like what's ailing you and where the trauma is, or like, how do you kind of work up to that point?
Good question. Well, I think I start every session by telling my clients that you can always look at my notes. You can always ask to see them. You can always ask what I'm writing down. So like, they're not secret. Like, and so I'm never writing down like insults, like, oh gosh, they're really dramatic today or something. Like, I never really doing anything intense like that. Unfortunately, the contents are pretty boring. It's a lot of just the intervention, like kind of psycho mumbo jumbo that I know what it means, but I guess no one would really understand. So like I I use something called relational frame theory, which is a psychological modality that kind of diagrams different thought patterns. And then I have something called an intervention, which just means like I try to kind of present a different idea or help someone kind of see something in a different way. And there's like probably 7 or 8 different styles of interventions that I can use. And so I'm writing down kind of essentially the process or the diagram of the conversation that I had, which is kind of illegible. It's like a shorthand. I mean, maybe it's the right way to think about it. Like if you look at the piece of paper, it wouldn't be very legible to anyone else. To me, it means something. So like I know kind of the thought pattern that I led people down, but it gets kind of jargony pretty quick. I suppose though, when I'm first meeting with somebody, the questions that I'm asking would be something like tell me about how you grew up. Tell me about the close connections that you had with people. Tell me about I don't know, maybe like tell me about your relationship with your mom. Like who was your mom? How would you describe her? Tell me about your dad. How would you describe him? What was it like leaving high school and trying to kind of establish yourself as an adult? Did you go to college? Did you get a job? Like, what were some of the struggles there? Tell me about your primary relationships. Maybe you're married. Maybe you're dating somebody.
I feel like
tell me about what you admire about them and
questions.
what. Yeah. I don't know. You just try to get a picture of somebody.
They're good questions because like first off, they're easy to answer. And I feel like people like talking about themselves for the most part, right?
Yeah, sometimes you got to pull teeth. But I mean, it's also hard telling all that to a stranger. Like,
yeah,
because when you're first meeting me, like, I don't know, they don't know me from Adam. So it's hard opening up about all the hard things in your life to someone you don't even really know. So,
right.
I mean, I think I have an honor and respect for that too.
But you also get perspective, and I feel like you get an unbiased opinion from someone that is from the outside looking in, and you're here to help them. So I feel like that's the beneficial part, because I feel like most people wouldn't want to open up to someone close to them who they love and trust because they don't want to be judged. Yeah. So if they open up to someone they don't know that's impartial, then you could probably give really good advice. And I always felt like there were 2 types of therapists out there. There's the one that kind of listens to your problems and just says, oh, yeah, and how does that make you feel? And then there's the other therapist that will actually like tell you what either you're doing wrong or what you could be doing better, or like if something was your fault or you did make a mistake, like not be afraid to point it out to you and not sugarcoat things and tell you that you're a perfect person. So that's kind of what
that's a good way to break it down. I mean, I think the way I might describe that is people who are more direct, or people who are more kind of slow moving, kind of take a longer pace at things. And I think I find that I kind of have different paces with different people. Like I think I'll learn pretty quick if someone's open to input and someone really is just trying to, like, they have a problem that they want to solve. They came to therapy because they really want change. Or if they came to therapy and they're kind of ambivalent and not really sure why they're there. They just aren't feeling good, or their wife made them come, or like, like, I don't know, like, why are you here? Well, my parents are making me come here. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to start sharing all these opinions about how you should change your life. That would probably be a bit inappropriate, but let's just get to know each other first. And so, I think different people would have different experiences with me if you're my client. And my guess is with most therapists, that's the case, that there's a lot of different hats you wear. You kind of just read the person and then see what they need, I suppose. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. So what's been your biggest hurdle so far?
Good question.
Getting all those subscribers, right?
I don't know. I think there's kind of a panic that happens when you're kind of on this rocket ship and everything seems to be going well. It's just you want it to keep going well, and you don't want it to just be a flash in the pan and everything's gone. And so it kind of feels like you're keeping a lot of plates spinning, or I don't know. Like, did you ever see those things? I haven't seen any recently, but it's like those little rooms that you step into where there's like a fan at the bottom, and then they spray up a bunch of like $1 bills in the like little tank, and then like there's a fan, and it's like the $1 bills are like flying everywhere, and you see that person like, and they're trying to catch the $1 bills in like midair, and they're trying to scramble, and there's like a possibility of them getting like hundreds of dollars, right? But just because everything's moving so quickly and it's such a frenzy, they come out with like $13.
Yeah, they come out with like $5.
Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like. It's like I'm trying to grab onto what's happening, but I don't really know what's happening, and everything's moving so quickly. And so I think there was like several weeks where I was panicked. Like, do I build a team? Do I hire like a manager and a social media manager and an assistant and and then everyone and their dog sends you an email trying to get on your team and trying to, I don't know, not in a bad way, like trying to just ride your coattails or anything, but everyone sees there's something happening and wants to be a part of it. Right. And so then you kind of got to sift through all that. And I thought to myself, like, oh, okay, I'll hire someone to kind of help me with some video editing and kind of help me with some of the production stuff, and threw out a thing on Instagram and got hundreds of applications. And I was like, oh crap, I don't have time to read through like hundreds of applications. And
yeah,
so yeah, it is. It was kind of jarring. And so there's like choice fatigue, maybe that kind of comes into play too. So there's like, do I build a team? And then who do I build a team? And then I'm calling tons of people and I'm having these conversations with different marketing agencies or with different managers or publicists. And then there's the choice fatigue of getting like, I don't know, I get maybe a dozen podcast requests a day and then like a few more just like public speaking things or like consultations for businesses or stuff. And then, so that's, I don't know, you just think through like, which opportunities do I take? And
thanks for taking mine.
yeah. I was happy to come on. And I try to take as many as I can, but it's a good problem to have. I think people listening that aren't in my shoes, it's like, oh, I would do anything to have that problem. And it's like, sure. Yeah. Like that's, and I recognize that, like that it's a good problem to have. It doesn't mean it's not a problem. It doesn't mean that it's not kind of stressful. And I think the stress behind it is if I don't make the right choices here, it's all going to fall apart. And it's one thing to feel like, oh, I'm doing something, I'm putting a lot of work into something and it's not working. It's another thing for it to work, but then it's all fall apart and everyone's heard what you had to say because the millions of people have seen what you've done and then they've moved along. Right. And then that just feels kind of like a profound rejection of like, you had your chance and pass. Like that feels a lot different than, oh, I just can't wait to get my chance. I'm not saying one's worse than the other. Just it's a different kind of stress. And so I think if I'm being honest, that one of the biggest hurdles has been maybe both mentally not kind of rushing towards myself with a lot of self-criticism and frustration and panic of like, how do I control this thing that really isn't controllable? How do I snatch as much money in this like machine, not like literally snatching money, but like how do I like, in this $1 bill like capsule thing that I'm in.
Sure.
And then I don't know, giving myself the grace to be like, I'm just going to make decisions that are aligned with my values and that I feel like genuinely enrich the people that are listening and center in on that. Because if I'm trying to predict like which platforms should I be investing more time into, who should I be hiring, like should I be writing a book right now, should I be doing a workshop, like there's so many what ifs and what should I be doing, but then there's centering back in on what do I feel like is genuinely meaningful and enriches the people who are listening. What do I feel like is on the edge of my interest right now? What do I think? I don't know, like, and having the confidence that what I'm bringing is bringing value to people. And so instead of trying to match other people's expectations of what I should be doing or what someone in my shoes should be doing, it's maybe, I don't know. It's centering back in on what you feel like is meaningful and giving yourself a little bit of a break to be patient and to take each step in its own time. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a little rambly, but that's kind of what I'm in the middle of sorting through right now, I suppose.
Okay. So you work with children, couples, right? Both. Mm-hmm. And these are people who have gone through some sort of trauma and have had very difficult times in their lives. How do you go about separating those sessions from your home life and just kind of decompressing and not letting all the trauma intake that you're getting from your patients just kind of, I don't know, bring you down or affect you in a way that it's not healthy for your own lifestyle. Like, how do you kind of turn that off? And I don't want to say it to sound like you're being cold, but how do you just differentiate between work and home when it's just when you're dealing with people and it's their lives and it's impactful and trauma is a serious thing? And so how do you kind of separate the two? I would think that's really hard to do.
Yeah. Well, I have two answers to that contradict each other.
Okay.
One is one is that I can't very well. If you care about people, it hurts. Like on a certain level. Like I don't feel like emotionally destroyed, but I don't know. Like I deal with a lot of sexual trauma. That's like a high focus of my practice. And so when I hear stories about severe things people have been through, like, of course I'm disturbed. Like,
yeah.
Of course it impacts me emotionally. I'm not sure it would be healthy to get to a point where it didn't. Like, I'm not sure even that's something desirable would be to get to a place where you're interacting with so much suffering and then you're totally just not even fazed by it. Like, I actually would fear being in a place like that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's a gesture of disrespect to take on other people's problems as if they were your own, as if they don't have the autonomy to be able to handle their own problems.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
if I'm staying up at late ruminating about someone else's life and experiencing it emotionally as if it was my own life, then I'm essentially kind of taking some of the burden and responsibility that is rightfully on their shoulders to steward and to process and to think through, and putting it on my own as if they're not capable to do that on their own, as if they're not capable, to handle their own and to work through their own problems.
Right.
And so I notice, and I think a bodily response that is a signal for me is if I'm finding high amounts of anxiety or depression or distress, not just even in the moment with somebody, but like lingering after on my drive home, then I'm realizing like, oh, I took someone's baggage today and I brought it home with me when it rightfully belongs with them, because they're the one most competent to deal with it. Like, they're the one with the most tools to be able to sort through that baggage. Like,
right.
I'm not the savior who has all the answers. I'm a guide on their expertise of being able to solve this problem. And so there's a trust that I have to have with my clients that they're the ones best equipped to figure this problem out, and I can help and I can empathize. But if I'm deeply disturbed, then there's a level of I'm trying to take something that isn't mine, and that feels disrespectful to me, is how I think about it. So I don't know, those are the two things that I kind of hold in tension.
It's an interesting perspective, the way you put that out there. But yeah, I mean, I guess I never thought of it from that perspective. Then again, I'm not a therapist or a psychotherapist, but it's very interesting. So you recently held a trauma workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. So what did you want your audience to take away from the workshop?
I did I did a workshop this last Saturday.
Sorry.
And on trauma, and then it's available. The recording is available for purchase still. So
nice.
If anyone is listening and thought that was cool, you can find that on my website. That I then the Q&A is included and all that, so people can still participate, which is cool. But I did a workshop on the neurology of trauma, and specifically how trauma kind of impacts the body. And that was it was funny. I was trying to talk to my social media manager and even my wife were like, that sounds like a boring workshop and kind of useless. Why would you talk like brain science of trauma? And maybe the heart behind it was a lot of people don't understand that their willpower of trying to figure out and process and move on and trying to move towards what's meaningful, even with trauma, isn't the only factor. People get really self-critical of themselves for not being able to figure out or move on past bad things that have happened to them. Not knowing that many of the processes and many of the tools that you have in your belt to process your trauma are compromised by the trauma. And I'll say that again, if that's a little complicated. It's like you have this task, like my water heater just broke. It almost started an electrical fire in our house, which was a big bummer to find out. But the idea is if you have this broken appliance in your house and you need to fix it, the appliance actually the tools that I need to fix the appliance aren't in your hands, aren't in your tool belt to do so. And I don't know. It's a frustrating thing to try to do a task when you don't have the right tools. You'll spend 10 times longer trying to solve that task. Like if you don't have a screwdriver, like good luck. I mean, it's not even that a screw is a complicated thing to, to turn to the left or the right. It's just if you don't have a screwdriver, you're in a tough spot. Right. And so the idea of trauma is that trauma uniquely takes away your tool belt and creates problems. And so I wanted to explain that. I wanted to explain how that is and why that is, and then give practical tools for people to be able to, to get their tools back so that they can start to do the work. And that's a complicated thing to explain, especially in like a 1-minute TikTok video or like in a, or in a like Instagram thing. Like it's hard because, and complex things deserve thorough explanations because I don't know, you don't want to do it. You don't want to, you want to do justice to a topic, I think is what I'm saying. And so I spent an hour kind of breaking that down. I'm like, here's the regions of the brain that are impacted by trauma and here's what they do. And then trying to also show people that like, you actually need this part of the brain in order to process the trauma. So we got to turn that part of the brain back on. And then here's some skills that you can have to turn that part of the brain back on so that you can start to process the trauma that did the damage in the first place. And it's kind of, I don't know, complex, I guess. But the workshop was meaningful. It was cool to hear people's feedback. Like we had like 700 people join for the workshop, which was super neat. And I got to have like a really fun Q&A with people, just like really to kind of dive into the specifics of that too, and applying that to like marriage. If you're married to someone who has trauma, or if you're trying to raise kids and you have your own trauma and you feel like your kids kind of trigger you, like what do you do? If you can't remember the events that happened to you as a kid, like how do you heal from trauma that you can't even remember? Like we covered that stuff in the Q&A. It was really, really meaningful. Like I know it's kind of weird to be super excited about a trauma workshop, but I loved it. I was right. I was like, it's empowering. Maybe it's thrilling in that sense that it's empowering people to be able to have autonomy in places that they feel really vulnerable, that they feel out of control. So yeah, I loved it. It was a great Saturday.
That's awesome. And the brain is such a powerful tool itself.
Mm-hmm.
Your subconscious mind and the way that works, right? So you know more about this than me, but I mean, I know people who have experienced trauma that they don't even believe they did because their subconscious mind has buried it so far down wherever that goes, and they've kind of forgotten about it. Then there's those triggers, like you mentioned. When the trigger happens, it sparks it back up. And then it's like you're at square one again, and you have to figure out how to deal with those triggers so they don't set you off.
Yeah, really well put. I agree.
So do you have any upcoming workshops?
I think so. I haven't announced anything just yet, but we just got done with this last workshop on Saturday, and so I'm kind of building out the next one. It'll probably release in June. So I just say if anyone's interested, that signing up for my email list is a really good way to catch on to that. Of course, like I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok and all that, but my email list is where kind of all the announcements on the for the workshops are. So MatthiasJBarker.com. That's kind of where I'm at, and that's where you can sign up and kind of hear about it, and also find the trauma workshop. That's on MatthiasJBarker.com too. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. And what about your ebook?
Yeah.
What's going on with that? What inspired you to write that?
Yeah, I wrote a book on grief. I don't know. It's been a hard year with COVID, and I know firsthand that a lot of people have lost people that they love. I lost my grandma this last year, and
I'm sorry.
And I know, yeah, thank you. I know a lot of people who lost someone that they dearly love, and so I think it was just my kind of like just a letter of solidarity and trying to kind of add some hope and not even trying to solve or fix the grief, just almost just like a voice of solidarity and compassion in the grief. And my goal in the book was, and it's just a short book, it's like 25 pages ish, maybe less. In an ebook that I gave away for free. Like you can just, if you sign up for my email list, it'll just send you a copy for free. And the goal of it was to help people not go down some of the painful pathways that grief that make grief a lot worse. So for example, thinking that just ruminating on your own regrets and the moments and maybe your last moments with that person where you wish you did things differently. And then your expression of grief really just kind of looks self-punishing, and you can't think about the person that you lost without thinking about all the ways that you're discontent with your last actions and those last moments that you had with that person. Or you should have called them more, you should have been with them more, or you should have seen them, or that last moment that you had with them, you should have been more present, or maybe you landed on some argument in that last conversation. Or like, grief just has a way of stirring up regret. And so I talk about that a little bit, because and then the idea that the grief shouldn't be happening, our impulse is to just try to shove it down and pretend that things are fine, and trying to make a case for why it's okay to feel and hold that grief, because grief is an expression of love. Like, if we didn't love that person, if we didn't value that person, we wouldn't be feeling grief.
Right.
So, to try to shove down the grief or pretend that the grief isn't there, is like pretending that our love for them isn't there. And that actually creates a civil war in your own heart. Like,
Right.
because the distress is so intense that we feel like we need to get away from it, but actually it's moving into that grief that is the most meaningful. And so I make a case for that. So yeah, it's just it's almost kind of organized like a journal. Like, there's different entries, and it's not really meant to be like an instruction manual or anything. It's just maybe like what it'd be like having a conversation with a friend.
Okay. And that's obviously timely and very helpful for anyone who's been through some sort of grief. And I feel like everyone has, and if they haven't, they will at some point in life, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, some of your most watched videos are on romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that is?
Man, I don't know. I think it makes sense that the most important relationships in our lives, we want to make those better. Sometimes romantic relationships can be the thing that are either most enriching or most stressful in our lives, right? It's like, if it's going well, it's the best. If it's going terrible, it's just the worst, so So I think that it makes sense to me. I use something called the Gottman method, which is kind of a whole group of psychologists who observed something like 40,000 couples in their lab, and just like kind of built their theory of how to kind of help couples, just kind of move towards what's meaningful together and kind of grow together. Not because they had like some hypothesis and they tested out on a bunch of people, but because they just watched like 40,000 people. And then what they observed was like, okay, what are the people that are like staying together 20 years later and really happy? Like, what did they do a lot? And then the people who split up down the road and were really angry and resentful of each other, what did they do? Yeah. And so they kind of just built this theory from the ground up, just watching, like, because they called them the masters and the disasters. That was their terminology for it. And what did the masters do that the disasters weren't doing? And then what were the disasters doing that the masters weren't doing? That was kind of their game that they put together. And it was cool. And they learned a lot, kind of putting that to the test. And so I went and trained with their team and kind of learned and scoured that research as well. And so a lot of my couples work is really focused on the evidence and focused on kind of the results of their lab work. And so I think it's compelling, because it's like every time I share that data with people, or every time I share those insights, whether it's on YouTube, or I do marriage workshops too. I have a marriage conflict workshop. I might do another one here, maybe June or July, but it's like self-evident that it's true. I don't need to convince people of these things. Like, when I share them, it's like, oh, that's plainly, obviously true because I've seen it in my own life. And that's what's so neat about it. It's like, I never have to try to convince or argue people into what the Gottmans are sharing. It's like, I say it, and then they're like, yep, that's me. I do that over and over and over. And then it's immediately transformative, because it's almost like a wake-up call. It's like, I'll describe a component of that method, or ways that we try to connect about something important, or ways that we get stuck. And it's like that insight can really transform things really quickly. And so I think part of it is that relationship content is just really important to a lot of people, because the relationships are important. And then another part of it is the expertise of the Gottmans. I'd like to claim that I'm just some guru, but I'm not. I'm not going to claim those are my pontifications. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants in that sense, I suppose.
Well, you actually have your own podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
So tell us about what made you start that.
Yeah, yeah. It was started by popular demand. I don't know. I wasn't in the podcast space really. I don't know, not on purpose, but I don't listen to tons of podcasts just generally. I mean, I read a lot of books and um I don't know. I don't I'm not a podcast person by like consumer like
Right.
so I didn't I didn't give it a lot of mind. I mean it and then everyone in the comments was just like start a podcast, dang it. I'm like fine, I'll
All right.
start one. And so I did it out of irritation with people asking me. No, I'm just joking. I did it with a I was actually putting a lot of my YouTube videos in the audio form. And so I was doing weekly YouTube videos for like a year, kind of like 10, 15-minute little topical, lectures just on life. Like I did one on empathy or did one on parenting or did one on marriage or do one on self-criticism. And so those were doing pretty well like on YouTube. And then so I just put that in podcast form and people can kind of consume them there in an easier way. And then I do like a little intro where I reflect on it because it's been like a year since I made those. And so sometimes I'll add a little bit of like, oh, this is kind of what I said a year ago. Maybe here's a couple changes I might make to that, or here's maybe how this further informs this other thing that I talk about a lot. Or so you kind of get like a current day reflection and then just an easier way to access that YouTube content. You can listen to it in the car, or you can listen to it on a workout or something without having to sit there and watch a video. So,
Do you get a lot of people that try to hire you through TikTok or Instagram? They're like, hey, I have problems. Can I hire you?
Yeah, I do. I have like a 6,000 person waiting list right now.
That's insane.
Which is,
I mean, I know I try to hire people on TikTok. I'm like, hey.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's so hard to like know if you'll connect with somebody. Like,
yeah.
And it's really vulnerable to share all this stuff about your life. And so you don't want to do that and then find out that the person's a total dud or doesn't know what they're talking about or super judgmental or something. Like,
yeah,
I totally get it. I just wish I had like more of me, I suppose, to be able to meet that need. I have a long wait list, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to get to everybody, and that kind of grieves me. But I mean, that's why I'm making videos, right? That's why I'm trying to write and make videos and
everybody in other ways if you can't get to everyone on a one-on-one
right
basis, right?
Exactly. And then also trying to be vocal about the different psychology like techniques and psychologists that I listen and read about, because ideally, if people found my couple stuff compelling, they'd go find someone who uses the Gottman method,
sure.
Or that also has done training in the Gottmans, so it's not just Matthias wisdom. It's like I'm packaging insights from other researchers, and so the hope would be that someone could see, my videos on marriage, feel like, oh, yep, that's what clicks for me, and then go find someone that uses the Gottman method and have a good experience. That's my hope. Yeah.
What's like your favorite book that you'd recommend? Do you have like a favorite book?
Gosh. That's a really hard question. I have some favorite books that I'm reading right now. I don't know if I give them the title of all-time favorites, but I'm reading. There's a book called it's at my house. I'm trying to remember the title. Oh, Things Might Go Horribly, Terribly Wrong.
Okay.
That's a good book. Yeah, Things Might Go Horribly, Terribly Wrong, and it's by Kelly Wilson, and that's a book on anxiety. So if you're someone who struggles with anxiety or panic or even just worried that things might go horribly, terribly wrong, that's a good book to read. I like that book a lot. So that's a good one. I also enjoy reading poetry. So William Bortz, Bortz, William Bortz, he just came out with a great book on grief. But it's poetry on grief. So I would totally pick that one up.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll stick on those two instead of giving you like a list of 5. But
yeah, that works. So congratulations is in order because I heard that your wife recently gave birth.
Yeah.
You have a baby?
Yeah, we have a baby girl. Yeah. Yeah, she is 7 weeks old, and her name is Loretta Jane. She's named after her grandma. Grandmother's. Yeah.
Really sweet. So how's fatherhood been? Are you getting any sleep?
Yeah, I think she's been doing good. I think we're at a point now where she's getting like 7-hour stretches, which is wild, which is so cool. That's awesome. That's living right there. Yeah, awesome. So getting sleep and yeah, she's just great. I think fatherhood is I don't know. She's a tiny little baby right now, so I had all this anticipation of all the lessons I wanted to pass on and all like the meaningful fatherly things I wanted to do. And then I had a mentor be like, "Yeah, you won't get to that stuff for like 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
minimum." So right now it's just a lot of changing diapers and bouncing them around, and and so it feels like fairly like I don't know, routine right now.
Yeah, they sleep a lot right now, and they're
Yeah.
growing. They're going to grow so fast, and you turn around, and all of a sudden you're like, ah, like my daughter's turning 4 next month. And I'm like, I can't believe she's
Wow.
4. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
that's
awesome.
awesome. Enjoy every minute of that. Um,
Thank you.
so what advice would you have for someone who's considering a career in psychotherapy?
Mm, that's a good question. I think there's a few things. When you pick your school, ideally there's someone that you would like to go learn from. Like if you read in psychology outside of like let's say you haven't done your master's yet, or maybe you're in your undergrad, because you need an undergraduate degree, which is a 4-year degree, and then you need a master's degree, which is a 3-year degree to be a psychotherapist, right? And so maybe you're in high school, or maybe you're, in college or something, thinking about being a therapist. I would say that start reading some psychological stuff now, and maybe just different authors or different podcasts that you like, and try to kind of get an idea of the kind of things that sound interesting to you, so that the hope would be, especially if you do your undergraduate degree is going to be like kind of a summary of a lot of different schools of psychotherapy, a lot of different philosophies on care for people who have mental health stuff that they're working through. And so pick kind of your school that you think is interesting, and then do a master's degree with someone who's a specialist in that field, in that thing.
Okay.
I think, and then read a lot outside of your classwork. Try to read some of the old people too. Read like Freud and Jung and Rogers and Piaget. And like, I think there's so much wisdom and so much insight in this whole field. And I think a lot of people, a lot of therapists, and this isn't, I don't know, I guess it kind of sounds like a critique. I don't mean it to be a judgy thing. It's just, I think a lot of people stop short of a lot of the gold that if you mine for it and if you really read and look for it, there's things that will transform not just your life, but the lives of your clients for decades to come. And I think that if you really kind of focus on being studious, like if you do the hard work, even though it's difficult and it's complex and it's hard to understand and it's tricky, like if
Mm-hmm.
you can put your mind to it and try to read as much as you can and try to learn as much as you can, like really be a student,
Yeah.
uh, you'll, man, it's so engaging and it's so meaningful. It's one of those jobs that you can directly see that labor turn into changing lives right in front of you. Like there's just times when I'm sitting with a client and there's something I read from, I don't know, Jean Piaget, which was a psychologist that's been long dead. He's an old dude. Like, and it was a super hard book. And I remember like stressing over that book for like 3 months, but I found this nugget, this idea that was so just, it took so much mental effort to get to that idea. But then I share that idea with like a single mom that's like wrestling with their kid and they just feel at the end of their rope. And then that idea changes their whole life. And it's like something clicks into place and the whole machine starts running again. And you're like, wow, like, thank God I just put in all that effort to get that piece. Because look
Yeah.
at that, how that piece just changed their whole life. Like, and there are few things in life that are almost that directly like cause and effect. And I think, I don't know, what my pastor would tell you is like you reap what you sow. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, sow as many seeds as you can, like plant as much, like do the hard work there. And then if you can collect just the fruit of that for decades to come, you'll have such a fulfilling career. I think what can be kind of painful is you feel like you have this bank of like 4 or 5 ideas. You feel like you don't really know what to do. You get in a session, someone says something, you have no idea what to say, and you feel like an imposter, and you feel like, why are they sitting here? I don't have anything to share with them. And I think there's two solutions to that. I think a lot of people in the psychological community really come towards that empathetically and say like, yeah, there's going to be an element of imposter syndrome for everybody. There's going to be stuff that you don't know how to meaningfully interact with. And that's, your job isn't to have all the answers. Your job is to just be there and be present with them and kind of be a companion. But on the other side of that, people are paying a lot of money to sit with you.
Yeah.
They're taking time out of their schedule. They're being vulnerable, and they deserve to have competence.
Right.
And so there's an element of, yes, be compassionate. Don't beat yourself up and be like, all of us feel imposter syndrome. I feel imposter syndrome. Like, but also put in the hard work. Like if people are going to come with the toughest problems that they have that they can't figure out, like they've spent their whole lives trying to figure out this one problem, and they're coming to you with hope that maybe you can help them. And you should be able to have some assurance that you've done work, at least in some domains, not in all topics, but in some domains where you can say like, okay, like I've scoured the research and I've learned from people, and I'm gonna bring everything that I've learned to the table and hope that we can get somewhere on that topic. And I think that's respectable. I don't know. That's an opinion of mine. I think I get some criticism for that for the psychological community, but that's what I believe. So do your work, kids. Do your homework.
You mentioned imposter syndrome, and I read about that for the first time, I want to say like a month ago or something. I came across something I was reading, and I'm like, what is that? So I Googled it, right? That's what people do. And I was like, oh, interesting. I never heard of it before. And then you mentioned it just now. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is just that feeling you get when, I don't know, someone's asking you a question and then you feel like you have no idea what to say, or someone thinks something of you that you don't think about yourself. It's hard because I think as a therapist or even as someone online, like people kind of treat you like a savior, or like you're the one who has all the answers to their problems. And on one level you don't, like, because you're just a human too. On another level, you should be able to have some tools that will be helpful for them to solve their own problem. And that kind of gets down to you're not the savior or sensei, but you are the teacher or the guide. Excuse me. And so there's a both and. There's like, it's not your job to fix their problem, it's theirs, but they're coming to you for help, so you should have something helpful. And both of those need to be held.
It kind of makes me think of like, you could be a really good soccer coach, or you can be, teaching someone how to do something. But if you were to do it yourself, you're not that good at it.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
Or, with marketing, it's like we do marketing for our clients, and we never really focus on our own marketing, just because it's not that we're bad with our own marketing. It's just that we just don't have the time to do it because we're so focused on the clients, right? So like that whole cobbler shoes thing, right? Cobbler has like the worst pair of shoes, but everybody else they make their shoes for look amazing. So it's kind of interesting.
100%.
So what's on the horizon for you?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to keep doing workshops. That's been really good.
Yeah.
Gotten a lot of feedback on that's been enriching, I think. Being the TikTok guy, like I'm always making videos that are like 30 seconds or a minute long. So people being able to sit with an idea for more than a minute has been enriching. So that's good. I'll keep doing that. I don't know. I think, like I was saying earlier, I still kind of feel like I'm in that tank, just kind of grasping at what's happening, and it still feels kind of like a flurry. And so, yeah, it's.
I love that analogy.
That's kind of what it feels like. So, I think right now I'm sticking to what I feel like is meaningful and engaging, and people are like being enriched by, and I'm just going to kind of see where that leads me. And so right now that's workshops. Maybe eventually there might be a book somewhere in the mix.
There better be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and then I also need a book just because if I'm ever going to do speaking, like TikTok influencer doesn't have the same ring as like author. Like there's a level of credibility that TikTok guy doesn't bring to the table that I don't care. Like I like what I'm doing, but some people are going to write that off as something the kids are up to. So not that I need to write in a book to appease anybody. I don't know. I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's like a generational thing too, right? So the generation that you're in, you're not the older generation, you're the younger generation. So you're attracting the younger audience. So I feel like you probably have a lot of millennials / Gen Zers that are following you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I guess we're all learning what that means together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm really active on Instagram and TikTok. Those are kind of the big spots where I'm at. So Matthias J. Barker on both of those spots. YouTube as well. I haven't posted a lot on YouTube recently. I've kind of taken a break on that. but the podcast is still active. And yeah, the workshops, MatthiasJBarker.com. That's a lot of my energy is being poured into Instagram, TikTok, and then my workshops. And so I think as I don't know, my time kind of expands. If I kind of dial back my private practice, I might try to be coming out with more content on more platforms. But so far, that's kind of where my intention's at. So if anything sounds compelling, or if you'd like to follow my work, hang out with me there. That's where I'll be.
Absolutely. Well, very exciting, and I look forward to new content coming out from you. And again, congratulations on beautiful Loretta.
Thank you. Yeah.
And yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. And everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of A Breath Fresh Marketing. Be well.